Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Coding with T. Today we're going to learn how to add user addresses inside our e-commerce application. Okay, so first of all, let's quickly have a look what we are going to achieve. Okay, our application is running and you can see all the data has been loaded. Let's go to the profile and let's click on the my addresses. And in here you can see we have two dummy addresses. We can select any of these and you can also see a loader. And once this one is selected, let's go back, go to the cart and click on checkout. On the checkout, you can also see we have that selected address over here, and also we can get the same list over here with the second one selected that we selected already. We can also toggle right from here, and you can see the next new address is now selected. We can also change it. If you want to add a new address, you can directly go to the new address from here. So let's go back again, go to my addresses. When we click on this plus icon, we will have all the details in which we are going to add the new address. When we're going to save this, that address will be automatically selected as a new address. So this is what we are going to achieve. We are creating Flutter e-commerce application, and we have already covered all the previous sections in which we learn how to set up the new project in a professional manner. Then we learn how to design the login series as a separate entity without relating to the e-commerce app. Then we start the designing of e-commerce application in section 3, and after that we started the backend. We have already covered each and everything related to authentication inside section 4, and whereas in section 5 we are about to complete it with only 2 videos left, and after that we are going to start different type of payment methods that we are going to add inside our application. And after the payment methods, we will handle the orders and create our admin panel using Flutter. So without wasting time, let's get started with today's tutorial. So we are inside the project, and in here if you head towards the features and inside the personalization, inside the screen you can see we already have the addresses design that we created inside section 3. If you open the addresses.dart, you can see we have two dummy addresses created over here. The first one is selected and the second one is not selected, and we have passed these two things manually. Now we have to customize this, and we want to fetch all the data using Future Builder. So first of all, as we are going to work on the backend, we have to create the controllers. So I've created an empty controller which is address controller inside the controllers of personalization, and extend this class with the getX controller. Okay, first of all, we have to create a new instance of address repository which is going to handle all the backend which I've created inside data repositories. And you can see address repository which is again an empty class which has just a simple variable of the database Firebase firestore.instance. Inside this class, create a function which is going to return a list of address models, and it is going to receive nothing because we have to get all the addresses of current user, and definitely it will be a cloud function. And make sure it have a return type of future list of address models, and also it should be an async method. Let's add try catch. Inside try catch, I have added first line which is going to get the user ID, current logged in user ID. If you head toward the authentication repository, you can see we have a simple getter which is going to return us the current user inside this auth user. So using authentication repository.instance, we are calling current login user and also getting its UID, and simply checking if UID is empty, we are going to throw the error which is unable to find user information. If we find the user ID, then we are going to get the result using await sign. Call the database Firebase firestore.instance.collection of users. Inside we have, make sure these names of the field should exactly the same as you have in the database. Then inside the document, we are going to pass the user ID because we have to get the document of this current logged in user. And then again we are going to call another collection of addresses because and retrieve all the addresses inside the users sub collection. So to call the sub collection, we are going to call collection, the main collection which is users, then document of current user, and then again a collection of addresses, means this is the sub collection of the users. Dot get is going to return us all the results over here, and then using the address model we will be able to convert this data to be mapped on this address model. We're going to see the database in few minutes. So let me first show you this address model. It will have a string ID, it will be a document ID in here. Then we have name, phone number, street, city, state, postal code, country, date, time on which this address will be created, and also a boolean over here which will be the selected address, because in this tutorial you will also able to learn that how we are going to store and retrieve the states inside Firebase, because in the previous tutorials we learn how to keep the favorite elements, or as in the upcoming tutorial we will learn how to create a list of cart items inside our local storage and how to retrieve them. Definitely these all things have different purposes, because when a user who have already added 3 or 4 different addresses and selected his main address, after that we have a constructor and a getter which is going to format the phone number. Then we have an empty method which is going to return us the empty model of this address model. Then a to JSON which is going to convert the JSON into a model into a JSON format. format, and the JSON can be stored inside our Firebase. Then we have a from map, because you can see we are going to receive the map. As you can see, we are going to receive the map data over here, which is actually a JSON, and we are simply converting this data to a model. And also we are going to receive the document snapshot, which has a snapshot of the Firebase document, and using .data we are going to extract the JSON again, which the same way we are doing over here at the top. So we'll extract this JSON and again return that address model from this function. And you can see here we are overriding .toString, which is going to help us to create complete address. First one will be the city, state, postal code, and country. So let's close this. Once we have the function inside address repository, let's go to address controller, and inside let's create a function which is going to retrieve all addresses. Okay, I've created a function which is going to return a list of address models, and its name is all user addresses. It will again be an async function, and using this address repository, we're going to call the function that we just created and make sure to add a wait sign. Once we have all the addresses, we are going to return this address, and those addresses will be displayed on the screen. But one more thing over here, how we are going to check or how we are going to decide which address is selected. So for that, we have already a property inside this address model which has a state of selected address. So before returning all the addresses, we have to find the selected address and create a variable in which we are going to assign that selected address. So we are going to create a model of type rx address model, because we want to redraw the design whenever there is change inside this selected address. And inside this address, we are going to assign address model dot empty and make it dot obs. Using this obs, now it is the observable variable which is going to be observed by the obx widget that we are going to use inside the design. And whenever there is change, that obx is going to redraw all the widgets inside its child. So now we are going to assign this selected address dot value is equal to, we have to loop through all the addresses dot, we are going to use first where, because we are going to get the first element where we receive the selected address. And how we are going to do this, we have the element will be an individual element or the individual address at a time dot selected address. If it is going to be true, we will simply return from here. And also we have another function which is or else, because it is a function, so you have to call it like this. And again, we are going to return an empty model. So by this way, if we receive any element which have a selected address value true, it is going to return the first where. And if we unable to find any selected address, in that case or else will be executed and we will receive the empty model. And if we receive a new value inside the selected address, it is going to redraw the design for us. So once we have our controller ready, let's go to all addresses, and inside remove the manual working of these t single addresses. Also remove this column. We have to wrap this single address with the future builder. For that, just use wrap it with the stream builder and change the stream builder with the future builder. Change the stream with the future. Also remove this constant, the constant over here. And now inside this build method, I'm going to create a controller, and we have to call the controller that we just created, which is address controller. Using get.put, it is going to create a new instance of this address controller. Now using this controller, we are going to call controller dot all user addresses, or you can modify this refactor rename get all user addresses. Now it's much more meaningful. And inside this builder, because we have to check that if current connection state is waiting, then we have to again display a circular progress indicator. If we receive any error and if we receive no data inside the addresses, we have to display the widgets accordingly. So we directly not going to return this single address. Instead, I'm going to use the function which is cloud helper function that we created in previous tutorials. Inside we have a static method, which is this one, which is going to check the multiple record state. It is going to require async snapshot, which will be list of type t. Then we have optional parameters, which is loader widget, error widget, and nothing found widget. If we are going to pass these, we will display all the data accordingly. And if we're not going to pass this, it is going to check if state is waiting. It is going to return a simple center with a circular progress indicator. And also if we do not found anything, center text widget. And also if we receive any error, it will display something went wrong. And if a success scenario in which we are going to receive a return null. And in here, if we receive a response which is not null, this means that something is not good. We have to display it. And if definitely we're going to receive the null value, this means that everything is okay and we receive the data. You can display your own widget. Now in here, we receive the data inside snapshot.data, and we have received all the addresses over here. Because we have list of addresses, we cannot display all the addresses in a single widget. So I'm going to wrap this with the list view. So we have this widget currently wrapped inside this item builder of list view dot builder with a shrink wrap 2. Item count is snapshot.data. because we already have the addresses, so we can remove this with the addresses.length. Now we have to modify this single address so that it can receive the current address and also on click method. So let's open this. We don't need the selected address because now we are able to check the selected address right over here, and also inside this build method, because you can see we are using this selected address to display different type of colors. For that, we have to create address controller. So we're using address controller dot instance. It is going to call the get dot find method to find already created instance, because in its parent widget we have already created a new instance of this address controller. Now on top of this rounded container, we are going to wrap this widget with the inkwell widget, and we have its on tab feature. So I'm going to assign the on tab that we have created over here, and also now we have to use the current address to check if we have the selected address equal to the current address. Then we will be able to get the exact current address, and also we want to redraw this key single address whenever there is change inside selected address variable, because we have to redraw all of the complete widget, the complete address widget, to select it or unselect it whenever it is going to be tapped. So I'm going to wrap this with a widget which is obx. This widget is going to detect the change whenever there is change inside the obs variables. It is going to redraw the complete files of its own. So let me just wrap it into another complete function like this, and we have to return this inkwell. Let's modify it this way. Control Alt L to align. Now inside this function, I'm going to get the selected address ID, which is controller dot selected address variable dot value dot ID. It is going to return us the current selected address ID, and then I'm going to create a boolean which is selected address is equal to if selected address ID is equal to the current address that we receive dot ID is same, because we're going to receive multiple addresses one by one to display as a widget. So let's say we receive the address which has the same ID as selected address ID. This means that this boolean will be true, and we have all the different designs that will be executed. Now inside this addresses, where we have to pass, instead of this static selected address, the first thing that we need to pass is the address, and to get the address we are going to use the list of addresses, and on a current index we will pass each address at a time, and also remove this constant now. And one more thing which is required, which is the on tab feature. This on tab is going to trigger the select address method inside our controller. Now using this on tab, we are going to call the controller dot select address. This is the function that we have to create, and we're going to pass the current address from all the list of addresses using the index property of this list view dot builder. So inside this address controller, I've created a same function which is the select address, have a future type and an async type, and also it is going to receive the address which we are sending, which is new selected address, and we pass the selected address from here. So when this function will be triggered, we first have to clear the already selected field from the database, because we are going to send this selected data to our Firebase. So before assigning the new selected address, we have to find the previously selected address and remove it, and then we are going to assign the new selected address as true variable. Now inside, to remove this, first we have to create a new function inside our address repository. So let's open it, and inside only have to change one single field. So this function should be able to change the single field from our selected collection. Okay, I've created a function which is not going to return anything. Name is update selected field. It is going to receive the address ID and the value which we want to pass as true or false. Because we have to deal with the user ID, we again have to see that if we have the current user over here. So based on this user ID, we are going to identify and toggle the values of that selected address. Then using the database, use the wait sign because it's a cloud query. Using the database keyword, which is Firebase firestore.instance collection, we again have to go to the users the same way at the top. And then again, using document ID, we are going to find the user ID or the specific user ID document. Inside we have a collection of addresses of that current user, and inside all the addresses we are going to find the address ID that we just passed over here, because based on these addresses we are going to create a new address, and we'll pass the address ID over here. And using the update, we are going to change this property. You can see I pass this in a curly brackets, means that it is a JSON function, and the key will be selected address. Only this value will be changed, and we are going to pass the selected property as true or false. Now open the address controller, and inside over here use the await sign, call the address repository dot update selected field, and inside we have to pass the address ID which we have inside our selected address dot value dot ID. It is going to get the selected address ID because we want to remove it, and we're going to pass the false. False means that now it is no more selected. Next we have to assign the new address. new selected id dot selected address is equal to true. This means that now this selected address value has been changed, and using selected address dot value is equal to new complete selected address. Okay, again now we have to call the address repository dot update field, and this time we are going to pass the selected address dot value dot id, because this time inside this id we have a new selected address and a true will be assigned. And if we receive any error, that we are going to display inside our error snack bar. So let's try to run this application. Okay, so our application is running. All the data has been loaded. Let's go to profile, and inside when we're going to click on my addresses, you can see after loader, no data found. This means that we are unable to display all the static data that we are displaying previously. Now first we have to create the data. So using this plus icon, we are redirecting to this form. So you can see which is add new address form that we have right on top of this, which we created also in the previous tutorials. So first of all, let me quickly add all the keys and all the text form field text editing controllers in our address controller. So let's open it, create all the variables over here. Once you have all the variables created, and also create a form key. Once done, create a new instance, not a new instance, but we're going to use the already created instance using controller address controller dot instance, and using this controller we're going to assign all the keys. Okay, I've added or assigned all the keys to the form and also to the controllers, and also added the validators. If you don't know about these key validators and the forms, I suggest you to watch the previous videos of section 4, in which we learn in detail about each and everything that we are just talking about. So once everything is assigned, you can see at the bottom we have a button which is a save button. You can see on the design as well. When this button is going to be triggered, we are going to call this add new address function inside our controller. So let's create this function. Let's open the address controller, and next to this function create a new function. Inside this function, you can see first I've created the loader, as we are creating the loaders in the previous tutorials for the forms. First we'll start the loader, then we are going to check the internet connectivity using the network manager dot instance class dot is connected. Using check connectivity function, the connectivity package that we are using this, we're going to check if we have the results. After checking the internet connection, we are going to check the form validation using the form that we just created. If we have a valid state, it's okay. If we don't have valid state, we're going to stop the loading and return from here. And after that, based on all these values, using name, phone number, street, and all these values, the text editing controller that we created at the top, using these features, we're going to map all of them on the address model, and we're going to pass this address model to the address repository or on a new function which we will create, which is going to add the address. Once address is added, we're going to increment id or update the selected address using address.id, because currently we don't have id assigned to this one. So once we have that id assigned, we are going to get this id, assign that again to this variable of address, and pass that address to select address function that we have created at the top to select a new address, because we want to select always the new address whenever that will be created. After that, we are going to stop the loading, display a successful message, and these are the two things. We are going to refresh the complete future builder so that we are able to see the updated record inside our data, and also we are going to reset the form fields, and simply we are going to pop from the main screen. So I've created a reset form fields, a simple function, name dot clear all the values with dot clear, and only a form key with the reset command with the current state. This is going to reset everything. Now to refresh the data, we have to create this variable, refresh data variable. It is simply a boolean variable. So let's go to the top. Next to those form fields, we are going to create a bool type of rx, which is refresh data, and default value is true. Whenever we are going to toggle this, it should be able to redraw the design. So it is not going to do anything specific, but just we are going to toggle this variable whenever we want, and it is going to redraw our design. So at the bottom, you can see I'm calling this dot toggle function because it's a boolean value, and whenever it is going to change from true to false, our design should be redraw by its own self. So before creating the address repository function, let's go to addresses.dart, and inside this future builder, because we want to redraw this future whenever there is new record inserted, so we are going to use the key of this future builder and assign a key as controller dot refresh data dot value dot toString. We are just assigning this value, and the only purpose is we want to redraw. So this key is not going to redraw. We just want to assign this key to the key over here. So the redraw is happened when we are going to wrap this future builder with the widget, which is obx widget. Now this OBX is detecting any child which has the .obs value, which is this one. So whenever there is change inside this refresh data, it is going to redraw its all the children's, which is including future builder. So whenever future builder will be redrawn, it is going to execute its own future, which is get all addresses, and rest of the things we know it. Now head back to controller, and here inside this address repository we have to create this function add address. So let's open the address repository, and in here we're going to create a function. So I've created a function which is going to return a string, which will be the current stored ID of that new address. Name will be same. It is going to receive address, complete address that is going to be stored. Also, because it is going to be stored on a user ID, so that's why we have to again get the user ID from the authentication repository. Once we have the user ID, we're going to call the Firebase firestore.instance.collection of users. Go to the document of user ID, then again into the collection of addresses and add a new address with address.toJSON. So this is a function inside the address model which is going to convert all the model map into a JSON format so that we can store this JSON to our Firebase. Then using this current address.id, we will simply return that address to or the address ID back to over here so that we can trigger our select address method. So hopefully we are done. Let's open the Firebase console. Okay, when you open your Firebase console, go to Firebase Firestore database, and inside you can see we already created users database. We have two users over here, and both users do not have anything or any sub collection inside its document. So first we are pointing all users, then we are getting or passing the document ID of that current user. Once assigned, then again we are calling the address collection. You can see we don't have any address collection here. Let's see another user. It also do not have any collection inside. Okay, let's go to my addresses, no data found, click on plus icon, and let's try to add new address. Once we added all the information, click on save, and you can see we have to add two more digits in it. So I'm going to save it. Still we have some issue. So now it's processing the data, and you can see we have a pop-up congratulations, also a new data which is automatically selected with a new format. But I think we are seeing the dummy data. Let's go to single address. We actually received the address, but we forgot to assign this address. Down below over here you can see we have a dummy address, so simply call address dot name address dot formatted phone number, remove this constant, also this one, remove this dummy address with the address dot toString. So why I'm calling this toString over here, if you head towards this toString, we override the toString method for this address. So whenever we're going to call address dot toString, it is going to head towards this implementation, which is simply combining street, city, state, postal code of this address model. So by this way we are going to extract the complete address. Let's save it, and you can see the data has been modified and we are able to see the data that we just added, and the current address is now selected. Now head towards the Firebase, and inside this when you refresh it you can see a new collection of addresses, and I'm going to open this. You can see all the new information with the city, country, date, time just now. Then we have ID which is empty. I don't know why we are passing the ID, because we have the ID at the top. So we just have to remove this from the JSON format. We have a name, phone number, and all the things assigned. So I've added all the new information. Once again, click on save. So it's processing the information, and also you can see we have a new record over here inside our database, and also the new address is now selected. Previously old address is now not selected. So when I'm going to click on this, you can see we are able to change address as well. If you want to display a loader on top of when you are switching the addresses, you can do that. Inside the addresses, whenever this function will be tabbed, which is select address, we open it. Right on top of doing anything, I want to display get.default dialog, in which we are going to display a simple circular loader. And once everything is performed, we are going to simply call get.back to close this loader. Now let's refresh it again. Click on new address. You can see the loader, and once the data has been assigned, automatically the loader will be closed. So this is how we deal with all the addresses. And also in the upcoming tutorial, we will be able to extract this selected address, and we will use that address inside our checkout. So once again, thank you for watching. That's it for today's tutorial. You can download the complete code. Link is in the description. And also, if you learn something new, please like the video. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified for all the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. Take care. Allah Hafiz.